Ruler quilting is for everyone, whether you're a home domestic machine quilter or a long arm quilter on a frame or a sit-down table. So far in the 5-star Rulerwork Quilt Along, we've stitched some straight framing lines and straight line designs like this center star. Now let's stitch some echoes. We can use some of those framing lines as the foundation for echo quilting. And this is an interesting kind of echo quilting. It's on an angle. So it starts narrow and then it goes wide. Let's take a look. I call it an inside angle echo. We're going to start at the corner point of this angular straight line. Place the second vertical reference line, the dashed line, on the stitch line ruler along the edge of what we've already stitched. You can see it at the lower right hand corner. We're going to stitch from the corner toward the upper part of the angle, and we're going to stop the foot a 1/4 inch away from the line next to, or the second radiating line. Now I'm going to rotate the ruler so I can stitch to the opposite end. I want to stitch from the middle of the angle to the next line, to the end of the next line. And now we've just created an inside angle echo. Let's do that again. A 1/4 inch away from the next line. Then from there, we're going to stitch to the end of the next line. We're using the tab feature on the ruler. Once the stitch line ruler is against the ruler foot, we're using that second reference line on the ruler, the dashed line, and placing it on top of the previous line. That gives us the angle distance we need to create the angled echo. So remember the tab feature on the ruler, the end of that tab is the needle position. That tab is a 1/4 inch away, so that's why I'm pointing the edge of the tab to where I want the needle to land. So I can stop right there in the corner. Now you're going to repeat this for all of the bright red sections. Let's do it again. You're going to have 4 opportunities basically, right? We're at the corner again, and we're going to use the second dash reference line. We're placing it at the top of that line using the tab feature, the ruler reference line feature, the tab feature. Don't forget that you're stopping a 1/4 inch away. Now if it's plus or minus a 1/4 inch away from the next radiating line, that doesn't matter. That's okay. It could be slightly more or less. And now the tab feature. So we're going to repeat this how many times? Yes, 4 times. You get lots of practice. From the corner to the middle to the corner. All right? Corner meaning the end of the next radiating line. This is good practice with ruler position, good practice with using the tab feature, and repeating multiple techniques in one design. And we were able to stitch that without marking. I love it. Now let's do 1/2 inch echoes on a right angle. With the stitch line ruler, second vertical reference line placed on the edge of the yellow star point, we're going to stitch a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the yellow star point. I always start with bringing up my bobbin thread so the top thread and bobbin thread are all at the top before I start stitching. The stitch line ruler has horizontal reference lines. They're small little tick marks that are a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch apart. We can position those reference lines at the edge of an area and then stop stitching at another reference line, which I just did there. There are two reference lines that I'm using that are a 1/2 inch apart because I'm making a 1/2 inch echo. Notice how you can see the vertical long reference line of the ruler is along the edge of the start point. That's allowing me to stitch a 1/2 inch away from the yellow section. Now I'm going to stitch down and reposition the ruler so I can continue stitching a 1/2 inch. Right here, I'm stopping at one reference line that's a 1/2 inch from where I want to stitch in the opposite direction. And when I turn the ruler, reference line lands right on top of what I stitched before. Now we can use the stitch line tab feature to stitch along the edge of the blue area. I don't want to stitch in the white area. I've rotated the ruler again, and I'm just repeating the process. Two reference lines. One is on what I just stitched, and one is on the needle stop. Once I turn the ruler, if I'm in the right position, the first reference line on the ruler will be right on top of what I previously stitched. Now we're just going to repeat the process using the vertical reference line on the ruler and the 1/2 inch reference lines. The 1/2 inch reference lines are needle stop and ruler position. So I'm adjusting the ruler so that 1/2 inch is on what I previously stitched and where I want my needle to stop before I stitch the 1/2 inch distance. So you stitch down to get to that 1/2 inch distance. Then once your reference line is on top of what you previously stitched, you can stitch the next line. But now you need to know where do you stop. So I adjust the ruler so that I can find my needle stop position, which is a 1/2 inch from the line I want to stitch next to. That's why we need those horizontal reference lines on the ruler, which are a 1/2 inch apart and a 1/4 inch apart in the center of the ruler. Since we're stitching 1/2 inch distances, we're using the reference lines that are a 1/2 inch apart. I'm always using some reference line on the ruler to check my ruler position and to know where to stop stitching in order to get my needle in the next correct position to stitch. Reference lines serve two purposes. They help us to position the ruler the distance we want to stitch for consistent stitching of a distance, and we need needle stop reference lines, where the needle needs to stop when we need to change direction. Congratulations! I'm excited that you have embarked on this ruler quilting journey, stitching echo designs in different areas of a quilt adds beautiful texture, and you can do it without marking. Learning how to use the reference lines on a ruler, I hope you see, is important. So practice, practice, practice. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter. I help quilters go from frustration to fabulous with two techniques, free motion quilting and acrylic ruler quilting. And I am excited to share this new acrylic ruler with you. It is an essential ruler to help you master straight line quilting, whether it's straight line with a straight edge or straight lines with the channel, which is fantastic for stitching in the ditch. But that's not all it can do. It can do a whole lot more, and I'm going to show you.